Hey, what's up, all my stellar individuals who chose to be here with yours truly? I understand it gets hectic out there and you could be absolutely anywhere, but you chose here. So I love the fact that you chose here. And we have a couple things that we have to discuss and marinate on. So think about this. This is the warm up question. What do you think the objective of war is? What is the objective of war? Now, this could be military war I'm talking about, or this could be, I don't know, this could be, sports strategic war. This could be several different things when I'm talking about war. But when you're at war, what is your idea of the objective? Think about that. Or spit it out. Spit it out in the comment. Let me know. Spit it out in your mind. Spit it out as somebody you at war with. What is the objective of war? Now, this ain't a pro-war or anti-war thing I'm about to take you through, but just wanted to warm your mind up with that. There has just been the release of, some will call him a political prisoner, some of them will call him a leader, some people will call him a menace. His name is Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover is a Chicago African-American man. I think he's in his 70s right now. And he started the street gang organization called the Gangster Disciples. Some people know him as GDs. He's one of the people who started it, but he's the main apple scrapple who got down. And later through his journey, he said, if we have all these people together, this GD needs to stand for growth and development. Long story short, because this isn't about him, he was sentenced to 200 years. Now, if you're not eating people, or if you don't steal all the money in the bank and replace it with counterfeit money or something, to be given 200 years in a sentence means that you were doing something that America really didn't like. This happened to him in the 60s, okay? In the 60s, the head of the CIA was named J. Edgar Hoover at this time. And J. Edgar Hoover said that the main threat, the number one threat to America as we know it, is unity of the black community. The number one threat. Now, whatever Chicago had going on, I mean, they had Fred Hampton organizing. They had a lot of young black men taking organizational activities into their own hands. Larry Hoover started one way, Fred Hampton started another way, but they started within a certain square mileage of each other's cause. And or they peaked at least in a certain proximity of one another. So I just want you to think about the objective of the war that each person finds himself in, the war that each faction might find themselves in. I'll give you the objective of war right here, right now. The main objective of war, it is not to physically annihilate the other side. No. Physical annihilation, that's the last resort. The main objective of war, no matter how small the war, and a war might even mean like a war of words between two people. You might be in a war of words in your house right now. Okay, the main objective of war is not to annihilate the other side, but it's to make the other side wear your colors. Welcome to this episode of Sorry for My Language. Episode 48, 47, 40 something. We're on episode 40 something. And I just got something quick. It's been on my mind. And I gotta contextualize this. I gotta build this up like lasagna so y'all get the layers of what I'm saying. There are layers to understanding the position that you are in right now in your war. Now, back to my previous reference of Chicago and its gang violence and its gang organization, the Gangster Disciples, the GDs, Larry Hoover being free. Back to that. This is why I said that. I was watching this piece on one of my favorite channels on YouTube, Soft White Underbelly, and it was with the guy. His name, I think his name was Ike Taylor, and he was a co-founder of the Gangster Disciples, and he explained how they came about. So they were all teenagers, okay, and this goes out to all of y'all who find yourselves in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, and up. Talking about you about to start gang banging or you about to start doing something. Man, if you don't go pick up a book, learn a trade, treat a woman right, do some sit-ups, drink your water, and sit down somewhere, man, GTFOH, WTBS. Back then, it was teenagers, okay? Teenagers started hip-hop. Teenagers started the gangs. Teenagers started whatever it is that we're interested in. Started grunge music. Teenagers, okay? If you didn't have it in you to execute, it's probably not you. It's okay. But you have to accept yourself for that, all right? So that's why I don't believe a lot of y'all when y'all be trying to do it real tough. I just don't. Anyway, as teenagers in Chicago, as Ike Taylor was saying it, Larry Hoover and him, they were buddies. And it was, I think he said it was a couple other dudes, but they would go. Larry Hoover's mom she worked in a bar. All right, just to make it simple. And when they would get home from school, she'd be gone. So he had brothers and sisters, and they give them like a little change to leave them alone, like to leave the bedroom or leave wherever they were. And then they would go in the bedroom, close the door, and that was their meeting room. And they would open the window, turn the light out so nobody could see them, and then they would listen to the sounds of the street. They would hear the hookers. They would hear the pimps. They would hear the players out there, as he said it, busting down game. And it was highly influential. And he said that was the game that led them. Now he's talking 1964, 65. That was the game that led them to organize the organization that we're familiar with today, known as the GDs. In this same interview, in talking about that room and talking about that window that they would open up and listen, soak up game from, that was out there on the street, he said, man, imagine if when we opened that window, it was facing a college or even a high school. Imagine if when we opened that window, we learned something. That was not the life they learned. But they had the juice, they had the influence, they had the wherewithal to gather people and guide them to where they wanted to guide them to. And then as he spoke about it, he spoke about the fact that there was a lot of, dare I say, influence from the government to push a certain lifestyle to the black community to keep them away from the best version of what they thought might be themselves, the best level of productivity. As I stated, J. Edgar Hoover said that the biggest threat to American life as we know it is the unification of the black community. This is the head of the CIA saying this in formal documents. Like this ain't hidden information. So he said, imagine if what we got when we decided to organize was something that led us somewhere else. Now, quite possibly, that was Fred Hampton's story. And I think man, I don't even want to get into Fred Hampton's story right now because I'm gonna misquote it. But Fred Hampton came from the South. He did so much so young. It's just really impressive. But back to here, and those of y'all who don't know who Fred Hampton is, just do your little chat GPT's Google search, or be bold enough to pick up a book or talk to an older person and talk to an older person. Do all those things. But in this war that the CIA, as the co-founder of the GDs, put it, and I'm using them because of the fact that, or I'm stating what he stated, just because of the fact that the black community underworld at this moment, the street gang life is running a buzz right now because Larry Hoover got let out of the feds and he's now going to spend the rest of his life in a state prison. At which point, I think his voice, his words, his communication will be heard more than it was heard because we haven't heard anything from such a leader at that time. Now, that's all I know about Larry Hoover. I do not know anything else about him. I'm not from Chicago, so some people say he was great. Some people say it was destructive. Several hundreds of thousands of people follow him in real life, not digitally. So that's all I know. But I'm saying that to say that the CIA they put drugs in the community, they put certain images in the community. I mean, he was even Ike Taylor. He was even talking about the ways that they were taught in school, and they were taught about African cannibalism in school, and the Sambo, what do they call it? I would call them pixies, but I can't even think about I can't think about the word, but the black face, watermelon seed spitting, big red lips, that type of character, he said that was very prevalent in his school teaching. And so that's what he was learning about black culture. So there were certain images that were placed and funded in a real way that had black people feeling like they were less than or that they could not do. So once again, it's very impressive that this was something that the organization of several thousands of people at that time in 1964 was even something that teens could do. But if given different tools, imagine what they could have done. So eventually, these people end up in jail. Eventually, whatever was in their heart that wasn't clearly communicated to the people who were there and the people who were coming after them, it definitely got turned into something that destroyed the black community in Chicago for years and years and years. And as you all know, the black community, at least a certain portion of the black community in Chicago, is still getting wrecked. And it's not just Chicago, but that thing spreads all throughout the country, which is not solely Chicago's fault, but we can't downplay the influence that that one city has had on street culture. Like I said, they started getting busy in the early 60s. Now, I don't know too much about gang culture, but I know LA wasn't doing nothing in the 60s that had anything to do with gang culture. That was not happening. And as much as we hear about this gang, that gang, it just was not, it wasn't up like that back then, right? The Black Panthers in Oakland started in 1966, so black people found their way, but some people were just more influential than others. Eventually, that war was not a street war. That war was a government war. In that government war, with all the tools that the government was able to use, the black people in the streets for generations, and when I say in the streets, I mean those who toted the poverty line, okay, just the common people. They wore the colors. They went by the morals of the United States government. The plan that J. Edgar Hoover, that's bugged out. His name is J. Edgar Hoover, and I'm talking about Larry Hoover. Damn. I just what? You know, you get to a say what moment and doing some genealogy. If y'all go, this is a total sidebar. But if you go to ancestry.com and find out where you're from and who you're connected to and what plantation you came from, all that type of stuff where it runs it down, you'd be a trip. It'll kind of trip you out a little bit to see where your last name came from. So just think if J. Edgar Hoover and Larry Hoover are connected. I never ever thought about that. Damn. Back to life, back to reality. Goodness gracious. But anyway, I'm going to say J. Edgar Hoover won that one. Prisons for decades, we could now say generations, have been filled up because of their operative to destroy unity of black people. Black people have been destroyed. Native American people have been destroyed. Several ethnicities have been destroyed in America by the U.S. government simply by what the U.S. government decides to show image-wise and what they introduce into those communities product-wise. It's a very abusive relationship. That abusive relationship has not stopped. Abusive relationships are systematic. Now, this is in all relationships in which abuse can be applied or where it can be instituted. Assault happens in abusive relationships, but assault does not define abuse. We run that back. Assault is an element, ASSAULT. That's a part of abusive relationships, but it does not define abusive relationships. See, the thing that defines abusive relationships is systematically taking away that person from their morals, that person from their confidence, that person from their resources, and slighting that person to the point where they are broken within. And so a lot of the times people might say, well, why don't you just leave, right? Whether it's, why don't you leave that abusive love relationship? Or why don't you run away from the house where that parent was abusing you? Or if that friend treats you like that, why don't you just leave that friend alone? Why don't you leave America, go back to Africa? Well, you're in a system of abuse, and some people see it and some people do not see it. Some people have to be told that, oh, damn, this is actually abusive. I didn't realize what that person was doing. But that person knew what they were doing. That system knew what they were doing. They stayed up all night for a very long time creating this situation. You're just a little gadfly in a spider web. That's what you are. That's what you are when you're in an abusive relationship. And you have to figure your way out of that, right? So in America, we are in an abusive relationship. And eventually, in that war, once the person realizes they're being abused and they decide to stand up and fight back, the winner of the war wears the other person's colors, whether it be a flag, whether it be an understanding. So it's not, sometimes it's literally what they're wearing. Oh, by the way, this is brought to you by Grindstone Universal right here. Yes, yes, yes. This jacket right here is made by Grindstone Universal. Go to grindstoneuniversal.com and get real fresh. You could do that. You could do that for yourself. So the cycles of abuse are prevalent in various types of relationships, but it's always systematic. Okay? So now, as I'm saying this, are you in an abusive corporate relationship? Are you in an abusive spousal relationship right now? Do you have an abusive friend circle? It's systematic. Somebody gonna chip away and break you down and break you down and break you down, and then they're gonna dog walk you to do whatever they want you to do. Even if it's just until you are annihilate yourself, and then whenever somebody asks about you, you shout them out. You stand up proud with that name badge. You wave that little flag. You whatever it might be, you do that, right? So in 1973, I think it was, there was a study done based on this bank robbery. And this bank robbery happened in Sweden. And the capital of Sweden is Stockholm, I think I'm right. At least it's a city in Sweden. So somebody broke down the behavior of the captives, and they had an affinity for their captors. And this was labeled Stockholm syndrome. You probably heard it before. Stockholm syndrome. Okay. Stockholm syndrome is when the abused person sticks up for the abuser. If you're in a hostage situation, it's where you fight for, you become the voice and the empathizer of the person who's holding you hostage. That is Stockholm syndrome. And what I've noticed is that Stockholm syndrome is way more prevalent, way more common than it gets credit for. And it's really rarely discussed. So Stockholm syndrome has four pillars to it. One is you minimize the abuse. That's the first thing. The second part of Stockholm syndrome is that they minimize the abuse. They downplay their own anger. I don't know what the balloons are for. Does that happen every time I do that? They downplay their own anger. They get real mad when they have fits of rage when someone tries to do something to their captor. So they become the angry person when somebody does something to their captor. And then the fourth one is they are dependent on their captor. Usually for money, resources. So they've been manipulated to be the voice of the one who has captured them. Now pay attention. Are you doing any of those things in your life for someone or something that's mistreating you? Are you, I got to pull that up so I can rattle it off quicker. Hold up. Let me see. Hold on. We're going to get this together, as we always do. Hold up. Stockholm syndrome. Captured by the masses. Whooping people's asses. In 1973, off in Sweden, something up in Stockholm got to Holmes. Held people down, I think it was in the bank. Ran through their mind like a motherfucking tank. They had Stockholms. What's the syndrome? 4 stages of abuse, something you need to get used to before it's used on you. Your own anger, developed by a stranger. I found it. Y'all like the little freestyle I was last something just to keep y'all warm while I was cooking. Okay. Many victims that experience Stockholm syndrome progress through 4 stages of victimization by minimizing the abuse. It ain't that bad. I mean, come on, man, that's normal, right? Suppression of their own anger. No, I'm all right. No, I'm good. Is this you? Dependent behavior on abuser and rage and fear when separated from the abuser. Now, those are the 4 symptoms of Stockholm syndrome. And a lot of the times you might get a, I don't know, if somebody was to say that to you, you might think that's a little extreme. But I really want you to evaluate yourself when it comes to those things. Okay. Now, I have acquaintances, and I was at a nice little gathering yesterday, right? I ain't seen these people in a long time, and I'm really big on, if you are friends with somebody, or your like if y'all are close, y'all need to kick it in person, you know? You know, let me see you breathing. Let me hear you a little bit. Let me listen. If it's pollen in the air, let's breathe that same pollen. If it's I don't know, let me see the changes that let me see your little changes as you age, man. Let me see who you are. Don't keep me with the memory of who you were last year. Let me see you. So yesterday we got together, had a nice little powwow gathering. It was really cool. I love y'all. So they were telling me about one of their friends who, well, he's my friend too, but I met him through them. But it was a function, and he started talking about his support for the current president, Donald Trump. Okay. I'm listening. And then it spun off the rails, and it turned into him degrading them. Now, their standpoint, I wasn't there, but their standpoint is, you could vote for who you could vote for. That's cool. Whatever. That was the point of view of some of them. But then, why you got to come for us? Like, we've been knowing each other for decades. Why you coming at me? Right? And I found that to be interesting. So then the conversation evolved to, well, if I knew somebody voted for Donald Trump, I can no longer be their friend. And that became the conversation. So I was thinking, like, dang, so you can't, that's an interesting standpoint. I'm here to listen to all the things in this exchange. So if somebody voted for somebody, you're not willing to be their friend despite the fact you have history, right? Is that what I'm gathering? Okay. Now, is that how you think? If you vote for left, right, independent, or don't vote, does who a person votes for determine on if you can be their friend or not going forward? If you have been their friend, like, does it affect how you think? I don't know. I mean, some people have family members, right? And they might give them a pass. Some people have family members and they don't give them a pass. I mean, are we the ones to give passes or to revoke passes? Well, when it comes to our personal space, absolutely. But how do you feel about that? So that's how we were bouncing the question around. If somebody voted for Donald Trump and you did not, are you severing that relationship because of the fact they voted for him, or because you feel like they unearthed the part of themselves that you never really knew existed, and you don't like that, or you don't feel safe around that? Or do you really not give a fuck who they voted for? This is a questions up in the air. I don't have answers to this, but there is something that I will make a keen observation of. So, Donald Trump is a very crowd dividing, polarizing lightning rod of a celebrity political figure. Now, if somebody voted for Donald Trump, I do not remove that from the set of things I know about them, right? Because that's a strong go. But then part of it is, okay, that doesn't necessarily make them my adversary. But this is what I have noticed in black men. This is why we're here. What sound is this? Oh, no, I'm not going to press that. I was about to get button happy. But this is what I noticed. Sound effect happy. That's a better way to say that. I've noticed that black men who have decided to wear the colors of this new current MAGA America, right? Now, I don't know none of them bold enough to wear the hat in public. They probably stomp around with the hat at home or something like that. I don't know. But I don't know any black men who staunchly support this Donald Trump movement and who also date a black woman. And to be honest, a lot of them have not been in love with a black woman in their entire life. Right? So I think that this 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 current Donald Trump wave has given them a safe place to stand on and project all of their insecurities. Because another thing that they have in common that I've noticed from the people who I know, right? And it's various people who I know. There was something about their childhood that made them feel insecure. And I'm going to say oddly insecure because it's not the common insecurities of a 13, 14, 15-year-old, 11-year-old. You know, it was something that made them, most of the ones that I know, they grew up feeling insecure about being black. Now, whether it was because they grew up in a neighborhood or went to a school that was mostly white, or where they got bused from one area to another and being black kind of matched their income level. And so that was the shameful part for them. Or if they're hella dark skinned and they were made to feel like, come on. Back in the days, it was so many jokes for being dark skinned. Like this one dude, he said, what did he say? He said, I was so dark, I was so black. I mean, he was able to make fun of it though. He was like, I was so black, my parents didn't know I was there until I grew up, or something crazy, right? But I mean, it was several. I got at least 7 just "you so black" jokes, just because that was like when kids is ranking on each other. That was like an easy one to just bam, I'm pulling your card. But some people received that, and they might have received the nickname Smoke or Black or Grease or come on, it's several nicknames floating around because of people's skin tone. But then some people being black really negatively affected them because they really wanted white acceptance. Either their parents made them feel like that was the shit, or the messaging in their neighborhood made them feel like that was the shit. And I think at that young age, whenever they found out who they were in society, not who they were, because I don't think any of these people I'm talking about still know who the fuck they really are. But when they found out who they were, I think that they really wanted to abandon that and do anything for white acceptance. And I think when you really want something, you'll fool yourself into thinking that you are not who you really are because you want to accept yourself as something other than what you are. And so these people have been tricked out of their space. And I've said this before. If you want to know who somebody is, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking to them, asking them nothing. You don't have to spend a lot of time like that. Look at who they're dating or married to, or look at their history of people who they fuck with in intimate space. That's who that person is. That's the cliff notes to who a person is. And a lot of these dudes do not have black children. When I say black children, I mean children from a black woman. And a lot of them don't have they don't have somebody who they would take to dinner Be like, baby, go put that thing on. We going out somewhere tonight. And that woman is black, not mixed, but she got two black parents, two black parents. And this is a commonality. And what they do that I have found, the very first, they do three things. The very first thing they do, they find slick ways to talk down on black women. And this is from niggas who I know, right? I can't really fuck with them like that, because this really, I don't base it on the Donald Trump vote either, but this time gave them a platform to just vomit all of their childhood insecurities and make it seem like they were right all along, right? So the first thing they do, they invalidate black women. Mind you, all of them related to black women, but they invalidate black women. That's the first thing. The second thing that they do, they all try to project the persona as if they are more intellectually fit than every other black person. They don't even look at the dumb whites. Nah, they don't see that. They're more intellectually adept amongst the black congregation, to the point where they have ascended to a level where they are no longer of the black race. Now, they don't say they're not of the black race, but if you close your eyes and heard them talk, then you would be like, oh yeah, okay, this is a white guy. Because they have a lot of shade for everything that is born of African or African American descent. And the third thing, they have the first, well, I can't even say the first, but they minimize the abuse that they've received in America. Systematically, they minimize that. And it is almost, well, not even almost, it's very much historically inaccurate. So that doesn't match their intellectual argument, And to be very clear, I'm not interested in arguing with these folks. I'm not interested in arguing with nobody, right? But it's just something that I've noticed, and I thought it was just me noticing it the way I was noticing it until I was around with these friends yesterday. And they were talking about another one of our friends who's just like, he decided that was his turn to start talking bad about the black women who he was friends with. And he stood his ground on saying, blah, 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 Donald Trump to the future. And that was all lumped into a monologue that he decided to have at this party, at this gathering. That was just based on, it was like somebody's birthday or something like that, somebody's child's birthday. So when you consider the stages or the 4 symptoms of Stockholm syndrome, just analyze it at surface level. They minimize the abuse. They have rage towards anybody who wants to do or say anything against their systematic abuser. They're dependent on their abuser, and they suppress their own anger. So if they're running those symptoms, man, just check it out, and then just thumb through the invisible pages of their dating history. I'm telling you, they want to be saved by Superman, and they will beat you up to save Superman. And when I say Superman, I just mean a white guy with stockings on, and a little fake persona. But Gil Scott-Heron already told us there is no such thing as a Superman. And if you haven't heard that song, look up Superman by Gil Scott-Heron. Times really do repeat themselves. So this era of Stockholm Syndrome Negro is not a new one. I mean, maybe it's a new one, but it's not a new collection of things that's happening uniquely in 2025. We've seen this before. And when it comes to being friends with those people, I don't know, it's happiness over history, right? And so you might have known somebody for a long ass time, but if this motherfucker think it's time to be arguing with you all the time, degrading you, crossing one leg over the other, talking that shit like they're more intellectual, dismissing what you say, all that shit, like Like that's the new friendship. I don't know if that's your happy place, right? Um, be honest, man, fuck all of y'all. You know, if any of y'all are peeping this, that's how I truly feel. But I just don't really feel like calling y'all and telling y'all that. One dude I had to like, I had to give him. I'm raw with these words, man. I had to give him a dosage, and I doubt if we'll ever talk again. But yeah, man, all the degrading shit, all that, man, keep that in your childhood. Dump that into therapy. Dump that into prayer. Go do some push-ups, man. Go do something. But what you all need to know is that even white people don't like niggas who don't like theyself. So what you trying to do right now is impress somebody whose colors you're wearing. You are already defeated. You look defeated walking in the room. The smile doesn't make that disappear. You can't tap dance your way into their hearts. You are food. Remember, in the 1960s, J. Edgar Hoover said that the biggest threat to American life is black unity. Well, you exemplify his dream. And if you look at all the hats and skulls that he got under his name, he meant that. He ridded the planet's surface of lots of influential black um, black magnetic leaders. So when you think of Stockholm syndrome, when you think of people who might or might not be affected, another good reference you could have is one of my favorite movies. It's called Dog Day Afternoon. It's a movie starring Al Pacino and him and his homeboy. Today was the day they had to rob a bank. So they robbed the bank. It was a big standoff, helicopter swarming, the news came, all that. It turned into this big thing. It's an excellent movie. But then when it came time to like get them, walk them out, have the people, come out with them, like the bank hostages, the people in the bank ended up fucking with them. They ended up being like, man, I like y'all, and so that was a true case of Stockholm syndrome. And they didn't mistreat the people in the bank. Okay, so it's a little different than the original Stockholm syndrome, but another case of Stockholm syndrome that you could look up is Patty Hearst. Now, the Patty Hearst case. As a matter of fact, if you've ever been in California and driven down the Pacific Coast Highway, it's one of the landmarks is the Hearst Mansion. I had never heard of the Hearstses, but this mansion is huge. And that was her dad. That was her family's joint. So she was like the baby girl of, I think his name was William Hearst. But man, some black people who were in the revolutionary movement at the time in Oakland, in the Bay Area, they kidnapped her. And when she finally got released, she came out singing their praises, right? And from what I understand, she wasn't mistreated outside of just being snatched from regular life, but she came out fucking with them. She was like, yeah, no, I fucks with them. And this is what they want. And, I don't have no value judgment on how she got flipped or what they did, but I'm just saying this is a symptom. And a lot of these people who are operating now, they are wearing their captors' colors. They are speaking the voice so their captors don't have to. They will defend their captor more than they will defend themselves. And so if you have these people in today's 2025 life who are some man, just some I got so many negative things to say about them, but I'm not even trying to acknowledge them enough to bring myself down. But just some bitch ass motherfuckers, just the I'll tumble for your ass, ear to ear smiling in front of white people, talking down on black people types, but they black. Man, cancel Christmas for them, man. You don't get a Christmas card this year. I can't fuck with you, my boy. But there's something where you have to make a decision, like, who you're letting in, pause. Hold on. Woo. Who you're letting into your space of care, into your circle of comfort, who you feel like giving seconds out of the day to interact with. Like, who are your important people? And be careful with those judgments, because if you deal with a co-opted person, they might hit you with a vampire bite and co-opt you as well. So, if you're thinking about how I feel about bitch ass niggas who have flipped, that's how I feel. And I don't have no room for that. And this is a rampant thought in a lot of people's minds. How you deal with this person now that they think this, especially now that they express this, and then say if they like come off of their high horse and want to like fuck with you again in the same way. How do you accept them? Do you receive them? How does that work? So I just wanted to give words to that today on this episode of Sorry for My Language. And when in doubt, one of the most revolutionary things you can do is support a black business. Go to grindstoneuniversal.com. Sign up for the email list. We always slipping in some deals and some discounts and some new flyness for y'all who are new here. Oh, yeah, by the way, all this art, that's art of mine. I create with these. That's for selling the website too. Till next time. Peace.